Democratic State Senator Roland Gutierrez of San Antonio, thank you so much. You announced this morning that you are running for U.S. Senate against Ted Cruz. Why are you running, and what is the essence of your campaign?
Well, Jack, quite frankly, we're broken in this state. We've been broken for quite some time. For the last 30 years, we've been under Republican control. And we haven't seen really the promise that we're the benefit of the bargain. You know, we're taxpayers, we pay into a system, and we're supposed to get infrastructure that works. We're supposed to get a healthcare system that works. We're supposed to be able to have common sense gun solutions that keep us safe. You know, at the end of the day, Ted Cruz has been part of a problem in this state and in the United States that has been nothing more than a cancer. He hasn't done anything positive. When he had a chance to provide $66 billion in infrastructure money to Texas, he voted no. When he had a chance to make sure our economy kept moving forward on the debt ceiling, he voted no. When he had a chance to be able to help us with regard to the Safer Communities Act and safeguard our children, he voted no. We need people in Washington, I'm sorry, Jack, that are going to bring back the goods and services of government. When you and I were young men, our senators, our Republicans would come back and they'd say, I brought money for this highway or this hospital or this school. I provided 10,000 jobs. I created that. That doesn't happen anymore. And it certainly doesn't happen with people like Ted Cruz that are just poisoning the well of what it truly means to be an American.
Before you can run against the two-term Republican, you have to win the Democratic primary. Why do you believe you are the best Democrat in the race?
You know, Jack, I've worked all my life. I worked in my private life as an attorney and entrepreneur, and I've also worked in my public life as a city councilman, a state representative, and now state senator. And I have a proven track record of getting big things done. We created the National Center for Warrior Resiliency, which takes wounded warriors off of opioids. We created the Farmer Suicide Prevention Act that Sid Miller, the Republican Ag Commissioner, said we saved 60 lives last year because of that program. We've got a proven record of getting things done in a body that wouldn't generally allow a Democrat to get things done. I'm going to keep working for Texans for common sense solutions. We need to start looking at how to fix our electrical grid so that 800 people don't die in a storm. The same storm where Ted Cruz ran off to Cancun while the rest of us stayed and tried to help each other out through a hard time. We need to make sure that we're trying to find solutions where people, working class people, aren't digging into their pockets to try to find out-of-pocket medical care costs. It isn't right that working class families have to spend $6,000 to $10,000 a year in out-of-pocket expenses. We need to improve our educational system. So much is broken. You can't just simply be the guy that votes no to everything and doesn't bring back anything home, doesn't bring back resources. I aim to be a senator that works for all Texans.
As you know, North Texas Congressman, Democrat Colin Allred entered the race back in May. He has a 2-month head start. He raised $6.2 million in that time period, and now he's got about $8.6 million in the bank. So how do you beat Allred in this primary?
You know, Jack, I'm no stranger to competitive races. I overturned a Republican Senate seat in the State House. The state Senate rather, and we're going to continue to work hard going forward. No stranger to raising money. I'm sure that people will get behind us and support our candidacy. But more importantly, I'm also the candidate that's going to outwork either one of these two men. I'm going to get out and talk to people all across Texas, from the Panhandle to Brownsville, from El Paso to East Texas. We're going to have a real discussion about what ails us. We're going to have real discussions about the things that matter most to people back home, about finding common sense solutions to make sure that we're making ends meet, to make sure that we're getting Medicare, our medical costs covered, to make sure our kids have a better educational system, to make sure our infrastructure and our grid are taken care of accordingly. We have to do better, but we have to talk about what truly is affecting us, not the boogeyman, not the distractions that Ted Cruz would rather have us look at.
Senator Cruz's campaign just put out a statement a short time ago. It says, quote, "We welcome Senator Gutierrez to the race Texans will now get to watch Colin Allred and Roland Gutierrez slug it out for who can be the most radical leftist in the state. Meanwhile, Senator Cruz will continue passionately defending Texas and delivering real results for 30 million Texans. How do you respond to that?
Well, I'll only look at his tweet from this weekend where he blasts Disney and some Barbie show for putting up a map of China. My only message to Ted Cruz today is get to work, man. Get to work and solve the real problems facing Texas. Don't start showing us your next scapegoat or your next marginalized group. Get to work, bring us resources, create positive legislation. In 12 years, Ted Cruz has had opportunities as our senator to do great big things, and he's failed time and time again. It's time he step aside and let the real workers begin to take that task up.
Texas is a Republican state, so how do you anticipate you or any Democrat is going to win this race?
Well, as I said before, Jack, we are no stranger to competitive races. We beat out a Republican in this state Senate seat. So I've got a lot of experience and a proven track record in getting big things done. And I hope that Republican voters will even look at our race and say, that man's an honest broker. He's a hard worker and he's delivered for our community. As we talk about the things that matter most to Texans, most of those issues don't have a D or an R behind them. There are issues that are important to working class Texans. I aim to be that truth teller, to tell people the truth about what's going on and the lies that people like Ted Cruz are perpetrating on them. And so we're going to move forward and have an honest discussion with Texans.
I wanted to ask you, you mentioned some of the issues before, but what are your top priorities if you are to be elected?
Well, certainly, Jack, we're going to need common sense gun reform, raising the age limit on access to weapons like an AR-15, making sure that we have extreme risk protective orders in national federal law, making sure that we close the gun show loophole. 66% of Republicans agree with me on these things, by the way, and several polls have showed that. But Ted Cruz refuses to vote on anything positive in that regard. We need to look at fixing our electrical grid in Texas. We need to have a senator that says, look, whatever the governor wants to do doesn't matter. We're going to tie on to the eastern and the western grids to make sure that we don't have the kind of blackouts like we had during that storm again. We're going to preserve life rather than preserve money and people in big corporations' pockets. And so we don't have a senator that's doing those types of things. We're going to ensure that we look at how we're providing Medicaid expansion dollars. We need a senator that's going to create legislation to eliminate rogue governors that are not taking care of working class Texans on Medicaid expansion. People shouldn't have to dig into their pockets $6,000 to $10,000 a year to cover their Medicare costs, a basic right. And so everyone should have the kind of health insurance that Ted Cruz and Colin Allred have. We're going to be talking about those things. And so those are some of the priorities among many.
On your campaign video this morning, you mentioned reproductive rights. How key is that to your campaign?
No, absolutely, Jack. I mean, we have come to a place right now where we've had a Supreme Court just go a bridge too far when it comes to women's rights, reproductive rights, affirmative action. We're going to go back and have that discussion, and we need to have it at a federal level. And so as a senator, it's my job to make sure that all rights are protected, including the rights of women to make healthcare decisions of their own with their doctors. Absolutely.
Wanted to ask you about inflation. Some of it has come down. Gas prices have come down. But I wanted to ask you about, food is still expensive as far as some of the items in the grocery store have not gone back down. It impacts people's lives. And I'm wondering, what do you think is the best solution for that?
Well, certainly you've seen interest rates climb up to protect us against those inflationary pressures. And that's important that we try to protect us from inflation. We've seen spikes along the way in certain products like eggs. We saw a huge spike that came down. You have to go to the grocery store to actually see that, and something that I do weekly. And I talk to people about what matters most to them at home. We're going to make sure that we continue to talk to people about those issues. When it comes to inflation, we've got to continue that on this steadfast approach that the president has put us on to right the economy. We're going to get back on track. It's going to take some time. You've seen a lot of those those costs come down, as you said earlier. It's my hope to make sure that we steady the economy. When you vote against the Debt Ceiling Act, like Ted Cruz did, that's not being a steady hand in trying to correct what's going on in our economy. That's a man that wants to create chaos with our economy.
As far as that deal is concerned, there is now a looming fight up in Washington about cutting the budget, controlling spending. Where are you on that part of it?
Listen, we've got to make sure that we're spending in the right places. Obviously, we've got to make sure that we're taking care of people's Social Security, which, by the way, Ted Cruz and others want to eliminate. Medicaid and Medicare, we have to protect those federal dollars and make sure that people are getting those protections in place. We're going to do anything possible to maintain the strength of our economy. As the next senator of the state of Texas, I will make sure that I'm a steady hand at that and work with the president in that effort. I think that as we go forward, it is up to all of us to make sure that we're moving forward in the right direction. I intend to do just that.
I did want to ask you one foreign policy question. Who do you think is the United States' biggest threat? Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, or somebody else?
Well, I think China right now, Jack, honestly, and it has been for quite some time. Russia is just a paper tiger, and I think that people will start to see that over time. China, you've seen a tremendous amount of saber rattling. They have a lot of problems at home, though. And, while that is good in one sense that they need to focus on those problems, we also don't want a situation where they're so unstable that they need to create a distraction like Putin often does. Right now, they have the inverse of what's happening in the United States. We have higher interest rates to curb inflation. They have extremely low interest rates because they need to jumpstart an economy that's just dead right now because of their failed response to COVID. So we have a lot of work to do. We have to work with our allies and make sure that those people that are not our allies, that we're continue to talk to them in a diplomatic way so that we can have peace and diplomacy and democracy throughout this world. It's my hope that people can have the confidence in me to be able to have this kind of dialogue in Washington with fellow senators to make sure that we're doing the right thing, not just in the United States, but across the world.
Is there anything else you'd like people to know about your campaign?
Well, Jack, I think that what you're going to get from us is a Texan that was the son of immigrants, that fought hard, worked hard, educated himself, went on to law school. I've been an entrepreneur for many years in a lot of different areas. I've actually created jobs. I've struggled to live the American dream. I know what it takes and what people are struggling with. And we're going to have that discussion for the next several months. And I think that people are going to find that in us, they're going to get a truth teller. And we have to focus on what our problems are collectively. If we can do that, we're going to be moving in the right direction. We can get back to where we once were.
Roland Gutierrez, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jack. Have a good day.
You too.